2025 is an absolutely jam-packed year for Nintendo. Not only are we getting a brand new Mario Kart game, and oh yeah, the entire launch of the Nintendo Switch 2, but also it's Mario's 40th anniversary. Now, I only bring this up because Nintendo celebrated pretty heavily for both the 30th and 35th anniversaries of the Mario franchise, so I would not be surprised at all if they have quite a few surprises up their sleeves for the 40th. In fact, I think it's likely. So this isn't just a prediction for upcoming Mario games, as those get announced all the time in general directs, but this is specifically a prediction for the 40th anniversary of Mario celebration. I'm gonna start the video by going off when this celebration would be, and then go into every possible game they could announce during it, giving each one a ranking of how likely I think it would be, and for each game, I'll give a little elevator pitch as to what I would actually want in that new title. We're not even just talking about games here. There's other stuff like the Mario movie and whatnot that we're gonna be talking about too. It is mostly games though. But anyway, let's jump right on into it. This is predicting Mario's 40th anniversary. So in order to celebrate Mario's 40th anniversary, what would Nintendo actually do? Well, realistically, they'll have a bunch of announcements and put them all together in a anniversary direct. This is exactly what they did with Super Mario's 35th anniversary back in 2020, and it worked out insanely well for Nintendo. The hype for this thing was through the roof, and 3D All-Stars, for all its very glaring faults as a collection, sold incredibly well even as a limited release title. So far, we know of one Mario game for Switch 2, and it's coming out the day the Switch 2 releases. So even beyond the fact that a September anniversary direct is in line with when they've celebrated in the past, it also makes sense given their current launch year lineup and the lack of known Mario games after that launch date. Remember, in 2017 when the Switch launched, we got Mario Kart 8 Deluxe shortly after its release, but then we got Mario plus Rabbids in the summer and Mario Odyssey in the fall. They definitely have more Mario games for the Switch's first full year, and September seems like a great time to show them off. But what games am I talking about? Well, now let's get into it. These are every single Mario game that we could even potentially get for the 40th anniversary. First up, we have the big kahuna, and that is a brand new 3D Mario game. It has been 8 years since Mario Odyssey released, and the 3D Mario team has had more than enough time to cook up something crazy. However, the elephant in the room here is that we might have already seen what they're cooking up, that being Donkey Kong Bonanza. This game has so many similarities to Mario Odyssey, it's honestly hard to point them all out, and while Nintendo, in their usual fashion, is being very coy about which development team in particular is developing a lot of their upcoming titles, including Donkey Kong Bonanza, the general consensus within the entire community is that this is being developed by Nintendo EPD Production Group 8, better known as the 3D Mario team. Yup, the team that brought us Galaxy, Galaxy 2, 3D World, Odyssey, all that. Now, they haven't just been working on 3D Mario for their entire existence. They created other games too, like Captain Toad Treasure Tracker and Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, which was actually their first official title. So they also have experience with Donkey Kong, and yeah, it would not surprise me at all if the 3D Mario team was behind Donkey Kong Bonanza. However, I do not think in the slightest that this means 3D Mario is another like 5 years off or something. Even operating under the assumption that the team is working on Donkey Kong Bonanza, I would still firmly believe that the next big 3D Mario game for Switch 2 is already firmly under development. Not only have they had 8 years since their last game, but also Nintendo knows how important a 3D Mario game is for a console. When Odyssey released, there was a brief period of time it was the highest selling Switch game, beating out Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and Breath of the Wild, and it really helped propel that console in its early years to the heights it eventually ended up reaching. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Nintendo even split up this team so they could be working on 2 games at once. Nintendo has been known to pretty much just sit on finished games, waiting for the right time to release them, and again, considering they have had 8 years since their last new game released, I would not be surprised at all if a little bit of that happened with Donkey Kong Bonanza. All of this to say, even if the Odyssey team did create Donkey Kong Bonanza, in my mind, that does not at all rule out a 3D Mario game coming sooner than you might think. It makes more business sense for Nintendo, which is why I genuinely think it's about a 50 to 60% chance likelihood we could see the new 3D Mario game at this presentation. Most likely it would be a tease and not a completely full trailer, and as much as I'd want to see a holiday release for this year, I think it might be 2026 or a bit later to coincide with the Mario movie too. But what would this teaser show off? Well, I think it would obviously show off Mario, wow, big shocker, but more importantly, it would show off the open world. Yeah, Mario Kart got it, and now I think 3D Mario's getting it too. We we saw them testing the waters here with Lake Lapcat and Bowser's Fury, I genuinely believe the next big step for 3D Mario is a massive open world. I think that's a big enough selling point as well that it could kind of carry the entirety of that first teaser. So I think that's pretty much all we're gonna get. It's just like a couple of shots of the world, maybe Mario platforming around a little bit, and in a dream scenario, confirm that this is actually full cooperative compatible. Multiplayer 3D Mario, in the case of Super Mario 3D Land, is some of the most fun we've ever seen in the series, but every other multiplayer 3D Mario game is awful. I do not want to play as Cappy or a Starbit Cursor. Show me Luigi, show me Toad, show me something. Moving on from 3D Mario, now we're not going to talk about a new game, but rather updates to an older one. That older game being the only Mario game we know of on Switch at the moment, Mario Kart World. I think there's a pretty high chance we see DLC. I'm giving this a 90% chance to happen in the 40th Anniversary Direct. It makes a lot of sense. This would just be the time, as it would be about 3 months after the game releases from June to September. This would also be just long enough for Donkey Kong Bonanza to have a couple months in the spotlight all to itself before the Mario Kart hype train starts back up in full force. Now, what could this DLC be? I really hope we're getting like free, consistent updates, but realistically, looking at this game, that is not what we're getting. I think the DLC Nintendo would give us would be like a $20 to $30 expansion that gives us a new, smaller island that you can either travel or teleport to, and that island would house another, 15 or so tracks, with all the different intermissions and different routes that you see in Knockout Tour and Grand Prix. In my opinion, the dream scenario isn't adding one massive island, but rather an archipelago, or a collection of smaller islands, each of which maybe houses 4 tracks for 1 cup, all close enough so you can easily drive on the water between the different islands, and that way they could slowly but surely add in more over time. That would be my dream, but realistically, we're gonna get one big expansion. I just have a feeling that's the way Nintendo's gonna go with this one. The next game I want to talk about is a brand new 2D Mario game. This is pretty unlikely. I'm giving it a 15%. Not only do I firmly believe that 3D Mario is right around the corner because, well, it's time for 3D Mario, but also Wonder only came out 2 years ago. However, speaking of Wonder, the next thing I want to talk about is a Mario Wonder Switch 2 edition. This is much more likely in my opinion. In fact, I'm going to be giving it a 75% chance. Not only do I think it's likely because, as I just said, I don't think there will be a new 2D Mario game, but Super Mario Wonder never got DLC despite selling over 10 million copies. I don't know what is up with Mario games and just not getting DLC, but this game is begging for new content. New badges, levels, and characters would go a really long way, and I think one of Mario's best 2D games getting brand new content would complement a brand new 3D Mario game perfectly. It covers both bases of mainline Mario games, and also this makes sense for something that could release later this year. It obviously would not take nearly as much development time as a full new game, but it's another Mario box Nintendo could put on store shelves. So yeah, I would not be surprised at all if we got a Mario Wonder Switch 2 edition, kind of like the Mario Party Jamboree plus Jamboree TV thing, where it's just an additional side campaign. In fact, in a past video, I talked about a version of this called the Mushroom Mix-Up, which would basically combine the Mushroom Kingdom with all the Flower Kingdom's weirdness, like the Wonder Flower. That would be the perfect backdrop for a new campaign, in my opinion. Sticking with the 2D Mario train though, next I want to talk about a new Mario Maker game. I'm gonna give this a 45%. I am really torn on whether we will even see a new Mario Maker game or if it's just right around the corner, and that is all thanks to Mouse Mode. Including Mouse Mode would change the name of the game for Mario Maker, making creating levels much more efficient. There's also tons of things Mario Maker 3 could add in, like themes from Mario Wonder, themes from other 3D Mario games. Remember, we got that 3D World theme, but nothing else. What about Galaxy, Sunshine, Odyssey? Those could all work. Or even just taking mechanics from those games, like the gravity mechanic from Galaxy. However, I almost wonder if there is a limit to the amount of content they would allow us to create with, as well. Obviously, if we got a truly unlimited Mario Maker, then there probably wouldn't be as much of a reason to buy the new 2D games. But even beyond that, Mario Maker 2 already had so much that if Mario Maker 3 keeps all of that and then adds as much new stuff as 2 did, it could get pretty confusing and overwhelming, especially for more casual players. Mario Maker has always been so successful because it takes something that's normally incredibly complicated, creating 2D platforming levels, and makes it super easy and accessible for anyone to at least, well, try. Not always gonna be good, but you can at least try. If they added so much even more, maybe it would lose some of that accessibility. However, there is just a ton of extra stuff they could add, and I mean, if they're making a Mario Maker 3, they're gonna add new stuff. And it would be a great way to show off mouse mode, which is one of this console's main new gimmicks. So I definitely do think it's possible. However, when I started talking about Mario Maker, I said I didn't even know if we'd get a new game at all. And that is because of this next game I want to talk about, which is a Mario Maker 2 Switch 2 edition. I am giving this a 30% likelihood, but if Mario Maker 3 isn't announced, then I'd bump it up to like 50%. Again, I feel like if they are adding mouse controls to Mario Maker, then that alone could justify a third game. But if they didn't want to go all out adding the new content and themes that we'd expect in addition of mouse controls, then just giving us a Mario Maker Switch 2 edition with maybe a few tweaks here and there and mouse controls added into the level editor would be certainly appreciated, especially if we have to wait a few more years for Mario Maker 3. The next thing I want to talk about is you subscribing to Switch Stop. I'm giving this a 100% chance, baby. Now, seriously though, if you guys are excited for Switch 2 and everything Nintendo's doing this year, well, we are too, and we've been super happy with the content we've been putting out, so check if you're subscribed. Chances are you're not, and it would help out a lot. Alright, let's get back to the video. The next game I want to talk about isn't even a Mario game at all. Yeah, I know, guys. I'm sorry. I clickbaited. The next game we're talking about is Luigi's Mansion 4. Yeah, this counts. Not only does it count, I am pretty high on this game releasing sooner than a lot of people think. I'm giving it a 60% chance to be shown off in Mario's 40th anniversary. Luigi's Mansion 3 did so incredibly well, selling over 10 million copies, so it's all but confirmed Nintendo has been working on a brand new game this time. Luigi's Mansion is now one of their top-selling franchises ever. They also never did substantial DLC for Luigi's Mansion 3. We got some multiplayer stuff, but no new single player content. And Next Level Games is coming up on 3 years since Mario Strikers Battle League, so it makes sense that they'd have a game ready somewhat soon. Not only is the series popular, but Luigi's Mansion 3 was basically the unanimously decided best looking Switch game due to its slower pace and smaller rooms, allowing for the excellent character work and animation to shine through, looking like a PS4 game at times. I think with Mario Kart World and Donkey Kong Bonanza showing off the power of the Switch 2 through their open worlds and mechanics, Luigi's Mansion would be the perfect showcase for how graphically intense a Switch 2 game could look with a smaller scope, allowing the developers to really hone in on the details here. I think if we're seeing this in the anniversary, we're just getting a teaser, because in my humble opinion, this game has to release around Halloween. Luigi's Mansion 3 released on Halloween, and I mean, it did really well. So a teaser in September, and then maybe a full trailer in June of 2026, preparing us for Halloween 2026. That makes sense, but I also wouldn't be surprised if this is sooner than later, just because Luigi's Mansion 3 is so successful now. Staying on the Luigi's Mansion hype wagon, I am quickly going to talk about Luigi's Mansion 3 Switch 2 edition. I don't really think this is likely. I'm giving it a 15%. This is most likely not going to happen because I am pretty confident in Luigi's Mansion 4. But if that game isn't announced, I do think this probably shoots up to a 60% or so. Even if this isn't a new game, just upscaling this to 4K would make it one of the best looking games on the system. They also could add mouse controls, which if done right could be a great addition to controlling the poltergeist, giving players more control options, which I think is always a good thing. Next up, get ready to party with Mario Party and then turn that party off because it's not happening. Yeah, I'm giving a new Mario Party game like a 2% chance. With Mario Party Jamboree plus Jamboree TV releasing in July, there's just no way they would announce yet another Mario Party 2 months later to cannibalize sales. Maybe if there wasn't a Switch 2 edition of Jamboree, the chances would be higher, but I just don't see another Mario Party on Switch 2 for at least a couple more years. But then again, they did technically used to release one a year on the GameCube, but it seems like those times are past. I don't think we're getting a Mario Party anytime soon. This one, though, I am very confident in. I think we will see the next Mario sports game. I'm giving this an 85% chance. Battle League came out in 2022, and before that, it was 2 years in between each game. So we're currently in the longest dead streak for Mario Sports since before the Switch released. I think that's a good thing, because the last Mario Sports games have been a little light on content. But regardless, they churn these things out. We will almost definitely be getting a new Mario Sports game, and honestly, it should be baseball. If they loop back around and go with tennis or golf again, I would honestly be pretty disappointed. They literally just need to recreate Sluggers again and they'd be set. But with the Switch 1 sports game track record, I do worry. I would really want them to include a story mode like Sluggers did and much more of an expanded roster. Sluggers had a great roster for the time and it even holds up now, but we have so many more main staples since that game was released that could be added, like Rosalina, Pauline, Cappy, that a roster revamp is probably needed. I also wouldn't be surprised if this game comes out this year. Like, I could see a Mario baseball game being announced in June, getting a bunch of information at this Direct in September, and then maybe releasing later in September or in October to coincide with the World Series. Next, let's talk about Mario RPGs. I'm giving this 1%. Yep, it's the lowest on the list. Between 2023 and 2024, all three main Mario RPG franchises got a new installment. We got the Super Mario RPG remake, Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door remake, and the revival of Mario and Luigi with Brothership. And nothing else of note happened. Also, although the sales for the Mario RPG remake were actually quite good, Thousand Year Door's remake and Mario & Luigi Brothership both kinda underperformed, with Thousand Year Door remake barely cracking 2 million units, and Brothership still has under 2 million. Because of that, I don't really see a Mario RPG game as something high on Nintendo's priority list. I think they'll release eventually when they're done, but they're not like fast-tracking these games to get them out on the new system. As for Switch 2 editions of any of those games, although it would be cool to see new side campaigns for Brothership and Thousand Year Door, I don't really see either of them getting anything more than a free graphical enhancement. Next up, I want to talk about Mario 40, which is kind of like Mario 35. For those of you guys who don't remember, because this was a blink and you'll miss it moment, Nintendo released Mario 35, which was kind of like a Mario Battle Royale, where you'd be racing against 34 other players, and this was kind of like a Tetris 99 style game, except it was for 2D Mario. Seeing this remade as Mario 40 would not only be fun and a great addition, but you know, they wouldn't have to nuke it 4 months after release like Mario 35. As much as I like this idea, and I think it would kind of redeem Nintendo killing off Mario 35, it just doesn't seem like the type of thing they would do again. But who knows, maybe they make Mario 40 just to delist it again. That would be funny and I would probably crash out, but realistically, I'm giving this a 15%. Nintendo always releases something around September time to bolster Nintendo Switch Online numbers, so from that perspective, this would make sense, but they're already releasing GameCube when the console launches, so maybe they don't really feel like they need to add something because it's still within the same billing year. The reason they normally release something in September was because that's when Nintendo Switch Online launched, so that's when the annual memberships would expire, so they wanted to give people a reason to renew their memberships. Next up, let's talk about the Mario Movie 2 cast announcement plus trailer. I'm giving this an 85%. I think this is happening. They showed off the Mario movie's first trailer in a September Direct, and it makes sense they do it again, especially for Mario's 40th anniversary. Prepare to see Danny DeVito as Wario and Yoshi speaking full sentences.
Bring her.
Seriously though, I just don't really see a universe in which they don't announce this in a Direct again. Even just the original announcement of the cast was such a moment online. They're gonna capitalize on that by just doing it again. Next up, let's talk about a new Captain Toad game. Captain Toad Treasure Tracker is one of my favorite games ever, and as I already mentioned in this video, it was developed by Nintendo EPD8, the same team that made 3D World, which obviously featured the Captain Toad levels that Captain Toad Treasure Tracker is based off of. As cool as this would be, I don't think it's likely. I would love to see Captain Toad 2 at some point though, but I've already kind of copium believed myself into the potential that maybe Donkey Kong Bonanza and a new 3D Mario game are kind of being worked on in parallel. Adding on a Captain Toad 2 on top of that, all from the same team, probably not gonna happen. I give it like a 5%. Next, let's talk about random other remasters and bundles. And I'm giving this an 80%, mainly because it's a super vague prediction, but stick with me here. Just like with 3D All-Stars, although I think we will get new games and DLC, some form of remastered collection wouldn't surprise me at all, and I have a few ideas for what it could be. First off, Galaxy 2 somehow. At first glance, I don't think they would sell it alone. It would likely either be bundled with the first Galaxy or just the 3D All-Star games, but maybe this time around, it isn't limited time only. They could also just sell Galaxy 2 on its own. A Super Mario Galaxy 2 HD for hopefully $30 or $40 would sell really well. I mean, they did this literally on the Wii U. You could go to the Wii U eShop when that was like a thing that existed and buy Mario Galaxy 2 digitally from that for like 20 bucks. Next up, what about a new Super Mario Bros. Remastered collection? Yeah, although these all are kind of the same game over and over again in a different font, having them remastered and all on the same cartridge would be really cool. This seems kind of wild to say, especially with Nintendo seemingly moving away from New Super Mario Bros. With something like Super Mario Wonder, but New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe on the Switch sold better than Wonder. Obviously, it had more time to sell, but still, the New Super Mario Bros. Series has always been incredibly successful for Nintendo. I would not be surprised if they wanted to do some sort of remastered collection and bring these games back over. I don't think it'll happen, but I mean, look at these sales numbers. You can't really blame them if they try it. Lastly, I want to talk about a Mario 3D Land remaster. Out of everything I just mentioned, this is kind of what I think is most likely. Literally just taking 3D Land, giving it the Luigi's Mansion 2 treatment, which is short for putting in pretty much no effort and then reselling the game at $60. I mean, this would sell incredibly well. It's a 3D Mario game, especially if they added in multiplayer. I could see this game selling well over like 7 or 8 million units. For a 3DS game with slight graphical upgrades and retroactively adding in multiplayer, changing maybe a couple of the rooms that really heavily use the 3D gimmick, and probably reworking the world map so that it makes more sense within the context of a home console Mario game, this game could sell really well, would take not a lot of effort from Nintendo, and they've already been shown to love doing these 3DS remastered games with Luigi's Mansion 2 HD and kind of Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, because it looks like that game used a lot of the 3DS version's assets rather than the original Wii's version. Next thing I want to talk about are some free graphical upgrades for Nintendo Switch 1 Mario games. I'm 90% sure this will happen. I'm not exactly sure what games would get graphical upgrades and not DLC itself, but a few that come to mind that could definitely use it are Princess Peach Showtime, Mario & Luigi Brothership, and Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. For Princess Peach Showtime and Mario & Luigi Brothership, those games straight up ran horrible and could use the boost. But for Thousand Year Door, a 4K upgrade and 60 FPS lock would make this one of the best looking games on Switch 2. Also, if Luigi's Mansion 4 isn't announced, I would bump up the chances of 3 getting a graphical update. Just to clarify here, I'm talking about graphical updates, not Switch 2 edition games. Nintendo is very strongly differentiating these. Switch 2 edition games seem to come in 2 different flavors. The ones with full-on extra content that are $20 more expensive, and then the ones that kinda have additional content, but it's like Zelda notes. And the main reason people are buying it is for the upgraded graphics. Those are $10 more expensive. Beyond that though, games that have literally no changes to the gameplay at all, and likely only require a small patch to allow the games to take full use of the Switch 2's increased power, I think we could get some announcements about that for other Switch 1 Mario games. In fact, I think it's really likely. Again, I'm giving it a 90%. Okay, so we just went over a lot of different stuff. Here's my final crazy prediction plus recap. I'm taking my stab at exactly what Nintendo will announce. I think the September 40th anniversary Mario Direct will include the Mario Movie 2 trailer or cast announcement, Mario 40 or something like it, some sort of online-centered Mario game, free for Nintendo Switch Online members, a Mario Wonder Switch 2 edition that includes DLC, a new Mario sports game, likely Mario Sluggers, some of those free graphical updates I talked about before, and it would end off with a tease for the new 3D Mario game, likely coming out 2026. As much as I would love to see Luigi's Mansion 4 or Mario Maker 3, I don't think the 40th anniversary will announce that many games, because the 35th only really announced 3D World plus Bowser's Fury and 3D All-Stars. Sure, we got Mario Kart Live Home Circuit, Mario 35, but in terms of like the big new games, those 2 were it, and neither of them were really new. Again, this is just the 40th anniversary prediction. We could very well get any of these, including a 3D Mario game, announced in a June Direct or a general September Direct. But as far as Nintendo specifically celebrating Mario's 40th anniversary, this is what I think will happen. Let me know what you think will happen down in the comments section below. Again, if you enjoyed this video, seriously, hitting the subscribe button is the best way to help us out, and it would make me happy. That's the best sales pitch I got. Thank you guys all for watching though. I say it every video, but y'all are the best. Stay safe out there. I'll see you in the next one. I'm Thomas from the Switch Stop signing off. Peace.